For as long as aircraft have been present on the battlefield, one of their primary uses has been reconnaissance and intelligence gathering. We saw instances of this early on in World War I, where aircraft used externally mounted cameras to capture pictures of troop movements, emplacements, and other things. We saw instances of this in World War II, with low and fast-flying aircraft like the Supermarine Spitfire fitted with external camera pods, capturing more tactical intelligence like troop movements and tank placements. We also saw instances of this during World War II, with aircraft like the Junkers Ju-86, capturing pictures of cities, fortifications, and other things. However, during the Cold War, a war in which everything advanced rapidly, anti-aircraft systems were not far behind, and soon things like Britain's Green Mace and Russia's ZSU-57 were pushing aircraft higher and higher to avoid being shot down. So it is in this environment that the Central Intelligence Agency issued Project Oxcart, a design competition between several American aerospace firms for an aircraft that could fly above the presumed effective altitude for most of these Russian anti-air systems. Lockheed would procure the U-2, an aircraft that could fly regularly at an astonishing 70,000 feet, but in some extraordinary cases, 85,000 feet. What American intelligence thought would be far above the effective service ceiling for a lot of interceptors and ground-based anti-aircraft systems. However, during Operation Grand Slam and the subsequent shoot-down of Francis Gary Powers, a political nightmare for frankly everyone involved, it became ever the more apparent to the CIA, the NRO, and the U.S. Air Force that not only did the aircraft need to fly high, but it needed to fly fast. And so the CIA issued Project Gusto between American aerospace firms Convair and Lockheed. Lockheed would win the application with their Archangel design, which would eventually become the A-12, the YF-12, and the SR-71, all designed by Clarence Johnson. Clarence's aircraft would fly fast, over 3 times the speed of sound, and it would fly high, regularly over 100,000 feet. Everything about this aircraft, from its maximum altitude to its maximum speed to the way in which the aircraft was designed, proved itself more than an adequate reaction to Russian anti-aircraft systems. The aircraft all shared a common engine, the Pratt & Whitney J58 turbo ramjet, which, at speeds below 2.2 times the speed of sound, acted as a conventional turbojet. But at speeds above 2.2 times the speed of sound, the shock cone intake retracted and turned the engine into a ramjet, thus allowing it to hit 3 times the speed of sound, regularly. While other Project Gusto contenders were forced to resort to exotic, hard-to-come-by, and expensive zip fuels, the J58 was able to operate off of JP7, a much more chemically similar fuel to the standard issue JP4 and JP5, which it could also use, but it would sacrifice its high supersonic capabilities by doing so. Most of the aircraft was comprised of titanium. Arranged in dogtooth patterns, large gaps were left between skin panels so that when the aircraft inevitably heated up to, in some places, over 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit, the metal would expand and fill in a lot of the gaps along the airframe. That way, the aircraft would be much more streamlined. The landing gear was even infused with aluminum to prevent it from shredding at the higher landing speeds warranted by such a large, heavy, and streamlined aircraft. The A-12, the initial airframe, would enter service with the CIA and be deployed to Vietnam on May 31st, 1967, as part of Operation Black Shield. It would be replaced by the SR-71 on 8th of March, 1968. It would also serve in Korea during the USS Pueblo crisis from January 23rd, 1968 to February 19th, 1968. The SR-71 would replace the A-12 in Vietnam starting March 21st, 1968, and end in 1989. It would serve domestically over America after the D.B. Cooper hijacking in 1971 in an attempt to use its photo recon equipment to locate some of the lost ransom money. It would spy on Russia starting April 20th, 1976, and ending in 1989, when the program was shut down. During its service record with the United States Air Force and the CIA, not a single SR-71 or A-12 was lost to enemy fire. NASA would continue to use the SR-71 for flight testing duties from 1991 to 1999. The YF-12 was a special variant of the A-12 that instead of carrying cameras, carried missiles and an airborne intercept radar. Built as a reaction to advancing Russian bombers like the Tu-22, it never actually saw service, but the missiles that were developed for it, the AIM-47s, would eventually become the AIM-54s, the missiles used on the F-14 Tomcat. While eventually replaced by satellites and drones, the SR-71 incited a revolution and multiple reforms to high supersonic aircraft. It proved itself as more than an adequate reaction to Russian ground-based anti-aircraft systems, and, in the case of the YF-12, even their bombers. While no longer in service today, the advancements given to us by the A-12, YF-12, and SR-71 will forever be remembered in the course of aviation history.